Good evening, and good, end of afternoon, let's say, in the Netherlands. So here we have two teams who are currently about to debate concerning a topic they received 7 days ago. My name is Aurélien Laurent from the Quarks Foundation. We will have today this day 2 match in the group C, and the two teams are representing the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens in Greece and Tallinn University of Technology in Estonia. The two teams are ready to, of course, say everything they have learned about space law, because it is now a match which is on an area of law different from the first day. We thank as well the three judges who will be watching this match, and of course they will be waiting as well patiently the results in 2 business days around for this match. So now, before we move to the topic and the allocation of positions, I would like to give the floor to the students for introducing themselves. So let's ask Miss Maria Mirenbourg. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Maria Mirenbourg, first year law student of Tallinn University of Technology.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well in Greece Miss Pelagia Stamataki.
Hello everyone, my name is Pelagia, but usually they call me Pelena, and I am a fourth year law student in the Athens National Competition University.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well in Tallinn Miss Suvi Ripinen. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Suvi Riipinen, first year bachelor's law student from THIULDT.
Welcome. We have as well Mr. Leonidas Tsaousis. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Leonidas Tsaousis. I'm a second year student at University of Athens.
Welcome. We have as well Miss Gretlin Koppel in Tallinn.
Hi everyone, I'm also first year law student in TALTECH. Thank you.
Thank you, welcome. And we have Miss Maria Berchetti in Athens.
Hi everyone, I am Maraya. I am a third year law student again at the National Kapodistrian University of Athens, and I'm wishing everyone good luck for today.
Thank you. We send greetings as well to your coach, so the coach for the Greek team, Glory Oyeseni, and on the side of Tallinn, the coach is Alexei Oscar Ioannes Kayander. Both of them are as well a judge in the competition, of course not today. So the topic you received was the militarization of commercial space operations, pose a legal challenge that must be addressed through binding international agreements. So now I will share my screen, so we'll know which position you will have for this match, knowing that the team in favor will be starting the match with the first introduction. So normally you should see my screen where you see the double flags and logos of your institutions. 2 chances, 1 chance to be in favor, 1 chance to be against the motion. And I will activate now the randomizer. So the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens will be in favor of the motion and will then give the first introduction, while Tallinn University of Technology will be against the motion. So it means concretely that the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens will defend the position that the militarization of commercial space operation pose a legal challenge that must be addressed through binding international agreements, while Tallinn University of Technology will defend the position that the militarization of commercial space operation does not pose a legal challenge that must be addressed through binding international agreements. So you have now 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we'll hear the introduction from the Greek team. Here we are done with the 5 minutes preparation, so I stop sharing my screen. And before we start, of course, when you will see the yellow card, it means that you still have 30 seconds in your speaking time. When you see the red card, it means that your speaking time is over, but yeah, you are advised to finish your sentence and not start a new one. So now, I will give the floor to the team from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. You have 4 minutes.
Okay, first of all, to check, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges and esteemed colleagues, Ukraine, Elon Musk, Starlink. 3 words that have dominated global headlines. Starlink, a SpaceX satellite internet provider, has become central to military conflicts, highlighting the legal challenges of commercial space militarization. Existing frameworks fail to regulate this evolving reality, making binding international agreements essential. This speech presents 2 key arguments. First of all, that current laws are insufficient, and secondly, that binding agreements are the best solution for accountability and security. To define, first of all, key terms. Militarization is the integration of military assets into a domain. Commercial space operations are private, profit-driven activities like satellite launches. A legal challenge is a regulatory gap in existing laws. And binding international agreements impose enforceable legal obligations on states and private actors through courts or regulatory bodies. So, first of all, current laws fail to address militarized commercial space operations. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty prohibits weapons of mass destruction in space in Article 4 and makes states responsible for private space activities in Article 6. However, it lacks enforcement mechanisms and does not regulate military intelligence use of commercial satellites or private anti-satellite weapons. Ukraine's use of Starlink in its war against Russia exemplifies the growing influence of private actors in the military strategy. Additionally, the cyber attack on Viasat's KA-SAT network just before the Russian invasion of Ukraine disrupted critical communications across Europe, demonstrating the vulnerability of commercial satellite infrastructure in military conflicts. The UN Declaration of Legal Principles of 1963 affirms state responsibility in space but remains non-binding. Second of all, binding international agreements provide the best solution. Unlike soft law, which relies on voluntary compliance, binding treaties impose clear rules and accountability and ensure the surveillance of states. They must regulate private actors operating closely with state militaries, defining when commercial activities cross into military operations. A UN-backed regulatory body should oversee compliance, impose sanctions, and adjudicate disputes. International precedent supports the necessity for accountability of the private actors when connected to the state. The Nicaragua versus the United States case of 1986 by the International Court of Justice confirmed that indirect military actions by private actors can violate international law. Similarly, the 1972 Liability Convention holds states accountable for private space activities but lacks enforcement. Strengthening this through binding agreements would close loopholes and prevent corporations from acting as unregulated military contractors. So, in conclusion, commercial space militarization is not a distant threat. It is happening now. Outdated treaties and non-binding principles cannot regulate the growing role of private actors in military operations. Binding international agreements are crucial to maintaining peace, ensuring accountability, and preventing corporate-driven conflicts in space. Without action, we risk turning outer space into an ungoverned battlefield. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are listening to the introduction on the side of Tallinn University of Technology. For your introduction, you have 4 minutes as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Honorable judges and respected opponents, today we gather not to launch ourselves into legal chaos, but to bring some down-to-earth reasoning to this debate.
The proposition suggests that binding international agreements are the only way to address the so-called legal challenges of commercial space militarizations, but why we slap unnecessary legal handcuffs on a problem that can be managed with existing laws and smarter solution? We argue that firstly, existing space law already covers militarization. Secondly, binding treaties are as effective as a screen door on a spaceship. And thirdly, non-binding norms actually get the results without causing diplomatic dogfights. So let's dive into it. We already have laws in space. There is no need to reinvent the rocket. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty is not some forgotten dusty relic. It's still the law of the land. Article 4 already bans nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction in space, and Article 2 ensures that no country can claim sovereignty, which in effect limits military control over space territories. So why do we need another treaty to repeat what's already written? Instead of crafting new laws, let's strengthen and enforce the ones we already have. Secondly, let's be real, getting countries to agree on a new space treaty is about as likely as getting your whole family to agree on a Netflix movie. Major spacefaring nations like the US, China, and Russia will never sign a treaty that limits their strategic advantages. For example, the US withdrew from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty in 2002, arguing that it restricted its ability to develop missile defense system. And if you make a treaty that doesn't include the biggest players, then what's the point really? That's like making a global no littering law, but only getting 3 people to sign it. Instead, let's use non-binding agreements that promote cooperation without forcing nations into uncomfortable, unworkable commitments. Countries rarely agree on binding laws, but they do follow voluntary rules when they make sense. Take the United Nations Space Debris Mitigation Guidelines, a non-binding set of best practices adopted by major space agencies like NASA to reduce orbital debris. No one was forced to follow them, but space agencies voluntarily implemented them because they saw the benefit. Today, almost all major space actors adhere to these guidelines, proving that non-binding norms can actually work without the bureaucratic deadweight a treaty. Thirdly, binding treaties often cause more drama than a reality show. Political tension, endless negotiation, accusations of non-compliance. Instead of forcing countries to sign rigid documents, we can build trust through voluntary agreements, industry standards, and cooperative transparency measures. For example, the Artemis Accords encourages peaceful and responsible space activities without slapping nations with legal red tape. Voluntarily confidence-building measures such as data sharing agreements and space traffic coordination actually makes a difference because people follow rules they help create, not ones that are forced on them. In conclusion, the idea that only binding international agreements can save space is a misguided mission. Firstly, we already have legal framework. Let's use them. New treaties are impractical and unlikely to succeed unless we suddenly get world peace overnight. Non-binding norms and voluntary cooperation are actually more effective than forcing nations into impossible commitments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the first rebuttals. We hear the first rebuttal on the side of the National Encyclopedist University of Athens. You have 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to focus on 3 main things in my rebuttal. Starting on the first one. Side opposition has offered us a very unfair basis to debate. The wording of the motion implies that this can happen. If this is something impossible which cannot happen, then there would be no point in having a debate. This is the fiat that we must have, that must be the basis for every debate. Therefore, we can just agree that this is something that can happen. Therefore, we should debate more on what is going to be the context of that, not whether this can happen. Secondly, they're telling us that we need more non-binding agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, we have enough declarations, we have enough non-binding agreements that in practice are not adhered to. We need agreements that can hold responsibility of the state, right? Because in law, we must ensure that this can be something that states can adhere to. And thirdly, on the unique challenges that stem from the dual nature of commercial space operations, which is a unique challenge that can only be addressed through binding international agreements. First of all, we need to establish that a lot of the commercial space objects are used for military and civilian functions. Even if we consider those operation military targets, this poses great challenge because they have a dual nature. This can be seen in the GSI art case during the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, highlighting the risk of dual-use technology. A cyber attack on Viasat's KSAT network just before the invasion impacted European users, causing Germany's wind turbines to not function. This raises two significant concerns. Firstly, it can cause collateral damage to civilian infrastructure. Attacks on dual-use technology disrupt those essential services such as internet, violating Article 51 of the Additional Protocol to the Geneva Convention, which prohibits indiscriminate attacks. Secondly, it can lead to potential violations of neutral state sovereignty. This can breach Hague Convention Article A, which corroborates the neutral state's right to remain uninvolved in hostilities. The mens legis, the spirit of the law, makes it mandatory to address this challenge. And there needs to be a strong compliance mechanism here to ensure that the state responsibility can be adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to the team from Tallinn University of Technology for your first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes as well.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I want to point out two things. The proposition said in their opening speech that Outer Space Treaty is still valid. We say that it's outdated and fails to address modern threats. The Outer Space Treaty is 1967 and was written before cyber warfare, anti-satellite weapons, and private space companies even existed, leaving major gaps. The Outer Space Treaty holds nations responsible for all space activities under the jurisdiction, whether by government agencies or private companies. This means like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Starlink are legally tied to home countries. However, the Outer Space Treaty never anticipates private militarization, leaving legal gray area that allows companies to influence global conflicts, as seen SpaceX, Starlink, aiding US military operations, while nations are technically accountable for any private spacecraft they launch. There is no clear enforcement mechanism allowing states to ignore violations. This loophole lets countries use private companies to deploy military technology under the guise of commercial activity, enabling covert militarization and increasing the risk of the conflicts. And also, proposition claims that only binding agreements can prevent space militarization, but history shows that legally binding treaties often fail. Look at the 1997 Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. It was legally binding, yet major players like the US, China, and India never ratified it. A treaty is useless if the most powerful nations refuse to sign it. On the other hand, the UN's space debris mitigation guidelines, like I said, a non-binding agreement, has been widely followed by space agencies. Why? Because countries follow rules they help create, not that ones that are forced on them. If we push a strict treaty, nations like US, China, Russia will just walk away, just like they did with other failed agreements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the second rebuttal. We hear the second rebuttal on the side of National and Capital Israel University of Athens. You have 2 minutes.
In the last speech, side opposition actually agreed on a lot of things we're also talking about. They said that the existing framework is not enough and there is a lot of legal loopholes that need to be covered. Exactly that, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about. We want a new legal framework that covers all the legal loopholes that are not covered by the existing one. The Outer Space Treaty is outdated, and we need a new binding agreement that can help us solve all those legal loopholes and ensure that the states are responsible for their actions. Then, after that, they're telling us that the states which would not adhere to the binding principles would adhere to the non-binding ones. This does not make sense. Like, the state sovereignty is absolute, but it's limited with the binding agreements that they have. Therefore, in order to exert this state sovereignty, which would be absolute if there were no binding agreements, they have to acknowledge that in certain circumstances, they need to respect those binding agreements. So there can be a world in which states do not respect their binding agreements and respect their non-binding ones. This goes against the logic of state sovereignty. And thirdly, I want to focus on the disproportionate burden that certain states have due to the unregulated territory that exists nowadays. Smaller states may be disproportionately burdened by the terms of the agreements with the private entities, as we can see in Starlink. Smaller states often lack the financial resources to engage multiple providers and negotiate better terms. Therefore, these states are often forced to accept terms that may place unfair burden on their military capacity, violating Article 2 of the UN Charter, which ensuring that the equal state sovereignty of all states. International agreements should be established to ensure that the entities are held accountable, and there can be a level of due diligence to ensure the protection of state interests against the interests of the private investors and the companies that are owned by foreign countries. For all those reasons, we beg you to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the second rebuttal as well from Tallinn University of Technology. You have 2 minutes.
Am I visible?
Oh, yes.
Can you
yes.
hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can
okay,
see.
yeah. Hi, and esteemed opponents and dear judges. These cyber attacks, they prove that treaties are ineffective. The Outer Space Treaty and existing space agreements did nothing to prevent these cyber attacks and or to hold Russia accountable. But we have a better proposal. Restorations, they are more effective. Countries can enforce norms through economic sanctions and trade bans. Example, Russia's invasion of Ukraine 2022, Western nations restricted its space industry with Russia. The US excluded, for example, China from International Space Station from like different things that they didn't adhere to. So we have another proposal, restorations. They are way better because they allow more flexibility and they only target the bad actors without restricting the responsible nations. They avoid diplomatic deadlocks because negotiating new treaty, it takes a long time and all the countries need to be agreeing on this treaty. So it would take a long time for China, USA, and for Russia to be able to agree in this kind of treaty. The Treaty of Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons from 2017 failed because nuclear power refused to sign. This is exactly what we are going against. We are for the restorations because it is way quicker, and this problem is ongoing, and we need to address it quickly. So countries already have effective diplomatic tools and to regulate this space militarization, and so we can use these restorations against those countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are reaching the conclusions. We start with the conclusion from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. You have 2 minutes.
May I make sure that I am audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, to rule over today's motion, you have to answer 2 questions. The first question is the existing legal framework sufficient? As the team of opposition has said, current framework, as they have already accepted, is insufficient. The Outer Space Treaty, as Mariah mentioned in her first argument, doesn't even have an implementation mechanism. But most importantly, as Leonidas told you in his rebuttal, judges, even if you are convinced that it is at any worth it, this convention, you have to take into account that undoubtedly there are certain aspects, very dangerous ones, that they are currently not taken in account by any current law. Leonidas in his rebuttal explained to you the problem of the dual nature of space infrastructure. This is not addressed currently by any norm or any agreement, binding or not. So there is a clear legal loophole there. And the team opposition hasn't shown us how we can solve that. Secondly, basically what the team opposition proposes to you is that states are never going to agree to something that they know they have to live up to. So a binding agreement is not possible, but the states will agree to principles, not binding norms. And the question we ask them, Leonidas asked them, is why do we even care? Non-binding norms can be broken at any moment with no consequence. On the other side, Mariah, on her first speech, show you that little regulation is better than no regulation. International binding treaties might not be perfect, but first of all, they provide crucial information through periodical reports, and secondly, they can be interpretation methods for other treaties. So, and please take in account, as Leonidas mentioned, that states have agreed to much stronger conventions, such as the Geneva Conventions. So we have strong reasons to believe that through political pressure, they will comply to a binding agreement, and that this is far better than a non-binding principle that can be broken at any time with no consequence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the conclusion on the side of Tallinn University of Technology. You have as well 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Honorable judges, respected opponents. As we conclude this debate, it is clear that the proposition's vision of binding international agreements as the only solution is more of a moonshot than a realistic path forward. They argue that the Aerospace Treaty is outdated, but outdated does not mean obsolete. This treaty remains the cornerstone of international space law, banning nuclear weapons and establishing the principle of space for peaceful purposes. Instead of discarding it, we should focus on strengthening enforcement mechanisms and adapting existing laws, a faster, more practical solution than waiting decades for a new treaty. The proposition also warned that without binding agreement, space would descend into chaos, but history shows otherwise. Non-binding norms already achieve results like the UN Space Debris Mitigation Guidelines, which space agencies follow voluntarily without needing legal force. They claim negotiations take too long, but wouldn't negotiating a new binding treaty take even longer, especially when major powers like the US and China struggle to agree on anything in space governance? The reality is that voluntary flexible agreements can be implemented faster and more widely accepted. Furthermore, the proposition overlooked a critical point: binding treaties often exclude key players. The Artemis Accords already leave out countries like China, showing that binding frameworks risk deepening divides rather than fostering cooperation. What we need is not more rigid laws, but inclusive, voluntary norms that build trust and cooperation. In summary, our team stands by the idea that binding treaties are impractical, divisive, and slow. Instead, we need to enforce existing laws, strengthen voluntary agreements, and encourage cooperation through transparency and confidence-building measures. Space is not the Wild West. It is already governed by laws that work when properly applied. Let's not shackle progress with more bureaucracy, but guide it through cooperation, trust, and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we heard both conclusions. From now you are not under evaluation by the judge. So you can rest, you can relax a little bit. And now we'll hear your impressions about this match. Again, you will be assessed by 3 judges for this match, so we send greetings and we send thank you as well for their time for watching and for assessing the 2 teams. So now I will start asking Miss Koppel, what did you think about this match?
Yes, a very interesting match. I think the opponents had very much to say, and 2 minutes isn't like a good time, enough time to counter everything they said. So I think we did pretty well trying to counter some of that.
Thank you very much. Miss Berchetti, what do you think about the match?
Okay, first of all, I would also like to congratulate all of our opponents because I believe that it was actually one of the best teams that we've had. And except for that, I have to say that, first of all, the topic was a bit difficult for us at the beginning because we didn't have so much knowledge upon space law and we didn't know how we would do it. But it turned out to be a very interesting topic, so I think that we have covered most of the aspects. And we're pleased to see that, like, even through our rebuttals, we were eager to reply to our opponents and all. So I have a very positive impression of the debate.
Thank you very much. Miss Repinen, what did you think about the match?
I think the match was interesting and it was challenging to debate against you because you were so well prepared and you had like arguments against everything. So yeah, I want to congratulate you guys. You did so well and you prepared well as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Mr. Tsausis, what do you think about the match?
I would also like to congratulate the opponents. It was a really good match, very competitive. I think it was a very interesting motion as well because there was a lot of ways of interpreting it and approaching it. And I think side opposition had a very interesting way. And I really liked the match.
Thank you very much. And Miss Mirenburg, what do you think about the match?
Yeah, the topic was definitely more comprehensive and more harder, but we tried our best. Yeah, I loved the debate, and our opponents were strong. The arguments were very powerful. So again, congratulations as well from my side.
Thank you very much. Miss Tamataki, what do you think about the match?
I think that it was a very interesting topic because it was not only about law, but also it had a lot of political and practical implementations. And I'm really glad because both teams saw it that way. And this was very good because it's very nice to make a debate where you both understand things in the same way and you both see the topic from all possible sides. So I really enjoyed it, really.
Thank you very much. So indeed, space law is unusual, of course, in LLB or even in advanced years. But of course, it's a way to explore if one day you think about going into telecommunication law, which is a part of space law as well. So in any case, many thanks. That was a great match. And now we'll do a bit of networking. So the two questions for the two teams will be, on one side, have you watched some other match from other teams? Did you speak maybe with former participants or with other, let's say, teams? And maybe you get inspired by some other teams about their techniques or their strategy. And the second question is, are there some persons you would like to thank, those who are supporting you, encouraging you through this competition? Could be friends, family, professors, student associations, whoever it is. So whoever he or she is, let's say. So I will start first with the team in Greece. So who wants to start?
I can start with the first question on whether we have watched previous matches. I think at first we were very curious about the tournament because our university does not have any experience participating in it, and we did a lot of research. And I think what we all agreed on is that there's so many different ways of approaching such a debate, different topics, and every team has a very different way of argumenting and doing the rebuttals. So I think it was very interesting to see how many different perspectives there are in this tournament.
Maybe Philos as well wants to add something?
We should definitely thank our coach that is currently in The Hague and has been very voluntary with us, helping us in things we needed. So this is something we didn't expect to have in the beginning because we started without a coach. So it's really, and also we have to thank you for putting us in contact with her. So this was a really good thing for us.
Yes, so Miss USMNI participated into the competition in 2021. Yeah, I think it was just before we expanded to 32 universities. So she was presenting French university at that time. And indeed now she works at the ICC and she's in The Hague working at this moment. So I'm happy that actually, yeah, it's good networking as well. And on the side of Tallinn University of Technology, same questions. Who wants to start? Miss Birenbourg, yeah.
Oh,
Regina.
I'm not Mirenburg, but I can speak. I think we want to thank our mentor as well, Alexi, who has supported us and taught us a lot about debating, because some of us hadn't debated like before this at all, so and others very little, so it was challenging for us in the beginning. So I think we have learned a lot and come far from the beginning. So we want to thank him.
Yes, and one thing as well to tell is that through each match, I mean, after each match, you will get, of course, the feedback from the judge, and of course you don't see it yet, but as organizers, we see all the match, of course, and we see the progression, the improvements, things that you adjust match after match, and the teams when they arrive in finals, of course, they are not the same. I mean, than during the first match. So each time a new set of judge, a new set of feedback, of course, that can help maybe to indeed improve some elements for the preparation as well. So on my side, I have to tell that it was a great, I would say, match, that's for sure. And as there's already a change compared to the first match, and I hope that it will continue this way for you when you will reach the third match, which will be in 2 weeks. You will receive the topic a week in advance, as I said, and again, that will be against the team you did not meet, so it means the Indian team, I think, for the team in Estonia, and the Chilean team for the team who is in Greece. So that will be the third and last match. The two best teams of this group will meet in 8th of final, the two best teams in the group D. And in the group D, you have a team from Saudi Arabia, from Italy, from Brazil, and from Costa Rica. So that will be the potential opponents for the 8th of finals if you finish at the first or second place of your group. So I would like to thank you again for your great debate and other availability, and I will see you in few days from now. First, you will hear me with, my colleague concerning the results of your match, this match, and then you will receive the topic on trade law, which will be in around 2 weeks. So many thanks again in Estonia, many thanks in Greece, and of course we keep in touch. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.